Joan not in.
John are missing.
Yes,
Oh.
Joan and John and Joe. The J's.
Joe is connecting to the audio at the moment, according to this little picture.
Look at you, Peter. You're such a
Boy,
techie.
he's a computer genius all of a sudden.
Listen, this is about the 8th or 9th Zoom I've done. My children like it, I don't like it, but a variety of meetings are held this way now. So I'm trying to look as if I know what I'm doing.
Well, is
Well,
Linda,
Len-
would you do roll call, please?
Yes, we have in attendance Leslie, Virginia, Charlie, Peter, Noel, Joan, and myself. As
All
board
right.
members.
All right, so we're missing Angus only.
Angus and John.
Oh, I thought you said John was on. No?
Joan.
Joan, okay. No Angus, no John. Just so you know, we have invited Tim Griswold to represent Old Lyme, so that the town has representation. And we have our guest, Dennis Zelensky. Dennis, good morning. And I also mentioned this meeting to Nick Promponis, who is the senior vice president and our representative for First Transit. So perhaps Nick will join in so he can see
Yeah,
how we work.
He's planning on attending your regular meeting.
Regular meeting, okay. That's good, that's wonderful. All right, item 4 on our agenda is nomination of officers to fill vacant unexpired terms. And I will turn that over to Virginia, who's our nominating committee chair.
Yes, thank you, Leslie. Yes, we have 2 changes as a result of a resignation. So, and those 2 changes are to be recommended, and that would be for the office of secretary would be Susan Tyler of Old Lyme, and for the office of secretary would be Charles Noors of Old Saybrook.
Is there a motion to accept that nomination?
I think
So
So
moved.
moved.
Are there other
I'll second
nominations?
Peter.
Are
I'll
there other
second Peter.
nominations from the floor? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of Charles North for secretary for the board?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, Charlie, thank you very much for offering to fill that position, and that's effective immediately. Thank you very much. Anything else, Virginia?
Well, what about Susan?
Yes, what about Susan?
Well, she was, you know, she's a nomination from the board.
You have to vote on me.
We didn't vote on Susan, yeah.
You have to propose Susan for her position.
I'll propose Susan to anything she wants to accept.
Will
Yeah,
you
she's
clean
the
my house?
recommendation. She's the recommendation of the. Yeah, excuse me. She's the recommendation of the nominating committee, along with Charles. We have, because we had a resignation that churned things up, so we have 2 positions to fill.
All right, so the position that you're asking Susan to fill is?
Treasurer.
I nominate Susan Tyler for the position of treasurer. Joan Gay.
So moved.
Second? Peter, second? Is
Second.
there are there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you, Susan, for becoming our treasurer effective immediately.
Leslie,
What?
I'm sorry, Suzanne, that was the motions to nominate them. Now you have to make a motion to actually appoint them.
Excuse me. You know, I'm so
Sorry.
glad you're here. That's our little Robert's Rules of Order there in Westbrook. Thank you very much. So now that these 2 positions have been nominated, now I'd like to propose the election of those 2 officers to fill vacant unexpired terms.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the two nominees?
Aye.
Aye.
Any, all opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Now you are officially effective immediately to fill those two unexpired terms. Thank you very much. Moving along in the agenda, item 6 is the discussion of our bus study and the MOA.
Sure, just came.
So who would like to start the discussion? Joe, you want to start? Joe, you want to start the discussion?
Joe,
Yes.
give us an executive summary, please.
Okay, so I think we've all, the study's pretty much wrapping up on the governance side. And we kind of, I think we've all reached a point where we understand where the recommendation is going to go. And so the discussion the board had last week was really that okay, we know where we want to go now. How do we get there successfully, and what kind of assurances do we need for DOT to go into this MOA in a position where all parties kind of start off with a goodwill and trust of each other. So, did I sum that well, Susan?
Yes.
So we wanted to have a discussion about kind of the things we had come up with that are our main points that we want some assurance on before we kind of move forward, because this board's ready to go, ready to make this a success as long as we can have these some assurances from DOT going in.
Joe, has that list gotten any further than our discussion last week where we settled on what that list is?
So at the end of our meeting Friday, I was asked to share it with Dennis. And so Dennis and I did speak on Friday, and he's here on the Zoom right now. So I gave him that list, and hopefully he's had a chance to review it. And we did discuss some of the main items on it when we spoke Friday, because we didn't want to surprise him at all on the call. We wanted him to have a chance to look it all over and be aware of what we were going to be talking about. And so if we're ready, we could go through those items line by line, however we want to start going through this.
Joe, it would be easier for me, I think, if we could see each other rather than look at the agenda. Is that possible, please?
Sure. Do you want I have the list of items here, but you don't want to, unless everyone
yeah.
has that, we don't need to see it.
Well, does everyone have it, or would you like to see it?
I don't have the revised version, the final version.
Yeah, I don't either.
All right, well then why don't we put that up? Whoa, hello.
Whoop, whoop.
Is it gone?
Yes, it's gone. Your calendar's up.
All right. Where'd it go?
You're a busy guy.
Peter
Now
can
is it
help
up?
you because Peter can help because he's very techie savvy.
All right. Do you want to go through one by one?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
All right. So
That's
our
it.
first item, and this one Dennis and I spoke about Friday, and I don't know how many times we've spoken about it, Dennis, a lot, is funding for the Extra Mile program. So I don't have to say a lot about this. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I apologize for the delay with that, but we're definitely going to fund it. We're happy to fund it through 2021.
It's difficult to hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I agree.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
All right.
Yes.
I apologize for the delay in getting that funded, but we're happy to fund it, and I'll get a written commitment to fund it.
No, you're fading out again.
Okay, we're happy to fund it. I apologize for the delay in getting that communicated. I'll get you a written commitment for the funding through 2021.
And 2020 as well,
I think 2021, right? That's what you asked for?
20 and 21.
Yeah, we're happy to do that.
Where's the money?
Where's it coming from? What do you mean? Where are we paying you out of, or what?
When will we get the money?
Well, hopefully within the next couple weeks.
Dennis,
do you
I
think
hate
we-
to be a pain. This is Leslie. I'm not sure, hopefully, in the next couple weeks is comforting to many of us. Can you be a little more distinct about that?
That's why I said I'll get you a written commitment from someone above me in the organization relative to that. They'll address it in a letter. I'll try to have a letter to you within. I'll try to have a letter to you within a week if that's reasonable.
Yeah, that would be helpful, because then at least we can show our auditors, you know, that we have a receivable.
Yeah.
And they don't count it as a deficit.
It would be helpful if that letter included a time frame.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
As well as a commitment to the project on the whole. And when Joe and I talked, it would be beneficial to get you a letter that basically says the DOT is committed to the merger and making it, funding it and making it successful. And then some reference in the letter to the funding of the Easy Mile and the timeline is what we're thinking. So we'll draft not just Easy Mile, but the commitment to the project and taking it forward.
So one of the things Dennis and I spoke about on Friday, because we haven't had a meeting since you and I spoke, Dennis, was that Dennis was going to try to get, well, he's going to work on getting a letter. He's sure he can get it. A letter from the commissioner, explaining his support for this whole project and commitment to it.
Yeah. Then we'll reference the Easy Mile funding in that letter.
Is it necessary? I mean, we don't have a TOD on this. Where does that fit in?
Well, that'll come after he dedicates the funding, so he'll have it shortly.
Dennis, I think a letter from the commissioner is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, would it be possible to reference in that letter some of these dollar amounts?
I think so. I mean, the first one on the agenda, I'd like to certainly the Easy Mile is one that is appropriate to be in the letter. We probably need to go through the rest of the list to talk about those things. Sorry for that.
Joe, do you feel we should be having an operating doc on at this point, or what?
The what?
A TOD.
The first, if we at least have a written commitment, I think the auditors will be fine with us booking it as a receivable. But we can't bill until we have a TOD.
Dennis?
But in order to have a TOD, they have to have exactly the funding lined up. So that's the problem. So at least starting with a written commitment will at least allow us, when the auditors come in, to not have that show as a deficit.
All right.
Leslie, I've got one more question. Dennis, on the letter from the commissioner regarding the integration, as I said, I think that's a great idea. Do you have any sense as to whether OPM has to approve this project?
I don't think so. I mean, Joe and I talked about that a little bit. Because I don't think so. I think that this is something the commissioner can do largely under his own powers. Because we're not really asking for anything more per se. Any individual request they would approve if it was significant. We have the ability to largely increase the POD with very little oversight from them. But we're not asking for a major new request of any kind. So I don't think in this case that's necessary. I mean, we'll run it. Once the agreement is consummated, there'll need to be an agreement. We'll have it approved and viewed and vetted by everyone in the organization. But I don't see that as an issue. And I would if it was another type of agreement or another type of deal, because keeping them abreast of things is critical on certain projects. But I don't see this as being an issue for them.
Okay.
Joe, Peter here. I can't find the dollar amounts in my notes. What is involved in the current year and then for 2021? How much money are we talking about?
I'll let Helena answer that.
Ballpark.
I got a ton of numbers in front of me here. I think it's 230. Is that right, Helena?
This is Extra Mile?
Yeah. Somewhere around that.
I don't have it in front of me either, but I have a budget on it that I've been using.
Yeah, we've submitted a budget a lot of times, and most recently a very detailed one. So I know DOT has it.
The 230 you're saying is for 20 and 21?
No, that's 1 year.
Which year?
I think it's 2019 was a little bit less.
2021 is going to be the higher year. 2020, I don't know. They had the actuals for 2020.
Yes, because we submit with benefits with 2 full-timers, and that's will be because right now we have part-timers doing that, so there's not a lot of benefits involved.
But initially, yeah, we had temporary employees doing it, not knowing when it was going to end. And once we extended it, we made it permanent, requiring benefits.
So 221 is higher than the 230, I assume.
Yes.
Well, how much is it, Helena, for 21?
I have to look at it. It's
about 230, though, isn't it?
I know right now we over 100,000. Yes, and then we add some more hours, and we add also 48 hours more to it with the budget we proposed, and we add 2 full-timers. So I got to look at it. I can get
There's about $310,000 in the budget.
That's probably around that, around
Okay,
300.
there we go.
That's a good enough number. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other discussion or any further questions to Dennis on Extra Mile, on item A? All right, then let's move on. B, the written guarantee that DOT will continue funding for Route 81 in the 5311 program at the expiration of current funding stream through at least fiscal year 2024. Dennis?
Okay, so that's the one we recently opened that I came to the ribbon on, Joe. That was
Yes.
It was a 2
The
year.
one that's funded with CMAQ money.
That was a 2-year demonstration, right?
Yeah, correct.
I can't commit to that for 3 more years without reviewing ridership and tracking. All of our service statewide is subject to change now because of COVID. We're not in the market of making decisions on these routes right now because they're all, so many of them are down because of the given situation. But you could have a situation where nobody rides that route for 3 years and you're asking us to continue to pay for it for 3 years. And then we'll take tremendous criticism for the public for running empty buses. So I can commit to evaluating it. We can look at the ridership prior to COVID and see if that justifies a long-term commitment. I'm not sure that it does. But 3 years, I don't think I'd commit to intercity route or express type service right now for 3 more years. Most, with the exception of the Stores route, which is the student route for UConn, which is tremendously highly patronized. All of our intercity routes and all of our express routes are going to be reevaluated over the next year or so. Many of them are tremendously underperforming. So we're happy to continue funding it, providing that it continues to produce. We're not cutting it for the sake of cutting it. But 3-year commitment to the route perform simply because we're doing a merger doesn't make sense to the public. I can't justify the public. Well, we still run the empty buses because we told the board, hey, we wanted them to merge and they agreed to, so we're going to run empty buses for years. I mean, hopefully it's not the case. Hopefully it has significant ridership. I mean, I'm willing to commit to fund it, provided that the ridership and it is meritorious, that it's patronized. But you know, it's, for you guys in your role there, you can't ask how.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, Dennis. Could we all mute our phones when we are not speaking? Like Virginia?
Yeah, I know.
Could you-
Unfortunately, I'm in the same room with my husband. I'm going to change my position.
If you can just mute the phone when you're not speaking, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Dennis, if you can't commit for 3 years, how many years can you commit to regardless of the ridership?
You're muted, Dennis.
I muted my phone there. Yeah. I can I can commit to a year of continued service and then an evaluation, because I don't think, in the next few months, especially, we don't know what's going on, right? People aren't riding because stuff isn't open yet. So, but after that, and I can commit to running it, providing it performs. That we won't cut it unless its performance is poor. We're not looking at it or looking at places to cut. We just don't want to be committed to something that may not be successful for the long term. And we take just relentless chances over empty buses and routes that are underperforming. Anytime a route's underperforming, someone's reporting it. Someone is, that's unfortunate, but that's probably the best they can do in that area. I can agree to keep it running for a year and then, evaluate it going forward.
So that would be till August of 22.
Right, we have one more year. We have one more year of CMAQ funding left. And so a lot of the concern why this was discussed was that right in the middle of our demonstration, coronavirus hits, and so it's really not. You really can't evaluate its success when a pandemic hits in the middle of the demonstration project.
That's fair. So maybe you and I can talk, Joe, about a reasonable point to reevaluate. Okay, maybe the board can authorize you to negotiate a reasonable. I don't know when the funding runs out. You seem to know off the top of your head naturally, but if we need sense to extend it beyond there for a better evaluation, I'm willing to do that. Plus, it's new. It's not like some of our express services that run their. We're going to cut a significant amount of our express services here in the near future, but they've been in existence for 20 years plus. So that's a different scenario.
Right, and this route was starting to build, and then the other thing is that a lot of the ridership on this route is going to college, to the community college, and who knows what that's going to look like.
That's always a consideration. The consideration isn't just how many butts are in seats on the bus. It's also who the populations are that you're serving and what the need is. There's always balance. if we're serving, for instance, out in Plainfield, a really impoverished area, we may not get the greatest level of ridership, but the people who are basically stuck out there and have no other means to get out. So consider that. We don't want people falling through the cracks, but we consider that as well as the overall ridership. But it's a balanced decision, and it's a little bit subjective sometimes, right? You say, hey, okay, it's marginal service, but these are really critical passengers, and maybe you consider running. Continue running. If it's poor ridership and only a few people that have other options to ride, then you need to relook at whether it's effective for taxpayers. And so I'm willing to procrastinate the process for looking at that to consider the COVID situation, and whatever Joe deems as reasonable. He's a pretty reasonable guy. He gets it. So whatever he deems is when he feels he can make a thorough evaluation of its merit, and we'll base it on that.
All right. Would you, Dennis, if you would also keep in mind that it was extremely difficult for us to get this route established. I mean, we bent over backwards to get this route. And if you can possibly, even in this conversation, take the high road on it, so to speak.
Well, I did. Kind of off the record. I don't know who all is on the call. Got a couple. I took significant criticism. There was for approving this when we did. It was one of the first things I did when I came to Connecticut, and there were a number of folks who were very opposed to it. So I'm not anxious to cut it and make it short-lived without ample consideration.
All right. Is there any other discussion on this particular item?
Yes, Leslie, could I please ask you to quickly summarize what Dennis has committed to, because his voice on my computer is coming across extraordinarily garbled, and I'm having a hard time making out what he's saying. So I would appreciate it, just a quick summary, if you could.
I will try. Dennis, correct me if I'm not using what you would like me to use here, but you are not willing to commit for 3 years. You need to have a look at the ridership and make sure that this is not an underperforming route, but you understand that with COVID, and as Joe pointed out, the bulk of the ridership going to the college, and we don't know what the college is going to do down the road, that you are willing to take the positive approach to extending at least for 1 year from going out from August 21 to at least August 22. Is that a summary of what you've said?
And that's fair. Yep, that's fair.
And that you and Joe will continue a discussion on this, correct?
Yep, and we'll be happy to come back to you and let you know if whatever changes we come up with or thoughts we have as time progresses.
Okay, Joan, do you have any questions?
Your opportunity
No,
to.
that's fine. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Dennis, it is a little tough to understand you. You're kind of like you're in a tuna can or something over there.
I don't understand that. I've been working out of this spot now for 3 months. I don't know. I haven't heard that before. I don't know what to do.
Leslie, I hate to ask this, but if you could just quickly summarize at the end of all the discussions, it would be extraordinarily helpful.
All right, I'll have a little more coffee and then maybe I can do that.
Thank you.
All right, if we're ready to move on, we'll go to the next item, which I have down on my agenda as C, regarding the purchase of Westbrook property and/or Shoreline property and the Middletown land ASAP. We don't see the need for waiting around. These are instrumental purchases for our moving forward with a consolidation. Dennis, your response, please.
We're 100% committed to purchasing the Middletown property. We've in the last week we turned it over to other departments within the DOT, environmental folks, and it's moving forward rapidly now. So I think you'll see that happen post haste. The other property we're still evaluating. I don't know where that is, to be honest, at this point in the queue. Joe, where does you were working with my staff on that, and I heard a few.
Yeah, that's the one.
Discussions.
That's the one that the environmental people at DOT are reviewing. And we also asked them to do Middletown too, so we asked them to review both. But we really started talking on this property because of the wetlands issues on it, and we wanted to make sure that it was a suitable property before we go any further. We're less concerned about Middletown, and they offered to do that one too, so great. But the Westbrook one we were particularly concerned about.
Mm-hmm. We have budgeted and are moving forward on the Middletown purchase. We recognize the need to purchase a satellite location, and we're evaluating the Westbrook property now.
Dennis,
soon
what do
as
you
it-
feel what kind of timing do you think we're talking about? Let's start with Middletown since you're a little further along.
Middletown is my number one concern of everything I'm working on right now. I'm pushing that purchase more than any other project I have right now. So it's literally racing forward at this point. We've had daily meetings about it. And so it'll move at the speed of government. I mean, we're going to purchase it, and it'll happen as fast as we make it happen with my browbeating.
Well,
My-
that's good to hear. I mean, that's
Committed.
excellent. But what does that really mean in actual dates and times? Does the speed of lightning in DOT talk, does that mean
Let me get
weeks, months, years? What are we talking?
Well, let me get you a timeline for the Middletown property. Okay. There are so many layers of process at the DOT that I'd hate to sit here and give you a categorical date and then not live up to it. So let me, I know where it is in the process. I know my boss has pushed for it throughout the organization, moving it forward. But let me get a hard but
Dennis, what needs to happen for the Westbrook facility to have the same level of priority as Middletown?
well, there's a couple things. The first one is it sounds like there needs to be an environmental evaluation. Sounds like maybe part of the property is wet, Joe, and concerns are.
The question's really setbacks. So we're just making sure that we can put certain items into the setbacks, which it seems like we can, but we're just wanting to make sure before we move forward on this property, because there's just enough room on the property if we can put at least the roadways in the setbacks. We just want to confirm that that can be done.
Can we be assured that the environmental review on Westbrook is going to be a priority and get done quickly?
Well, I spoke to the people who do it at DOT. Dennis wasn't at that call. They were very excited to be doing it, and they said they were going to be getting right on it. They said no one ever brings them into the process this early. We always ask them to. They were thrilled that we were consulting them. So it didn't seem like they were going to be slow on this.
All right,
I know they got all the materials they needed last week, like the end of last week.
All right, Joe, what if it turns out that the Westbrook site that we're looking at is not adequate, that the setbacks will not work? Do we have a plan B for a shoreline location?
Well, plan B is a site selection.
Yeah, did we have another site that's even
No, the plan B is we have to do another site selection.
starting from scratch? Okay.
Yeah. Well, not totally from scratch, because we at least we know we have a program for it, so we know what we need, and we know how to, what we'll need how much property, how it will fit, but we will have to do another round of test fits and preliminary reviews to come up with more candidate properties. So we're really hopeful that this one works. It looks like it will. I'm pretty sure it will, but we just want to be more certain before we say this is the property. Let's move forward.
Okay, so let's just hope then that it fits, that you're certain that it'll fit. Dennis, back to you. Does this then go on your radar as a #1 priority, talking to somebody about it every day?
I need to, I haven't seen the property yet. I'm going to be out doing site visits in the next few weeks. As the environmental unfold, we'll set a time with Joe to visit with him and see the property. Provided that the site visit list and I get a good look at it, then we can push it forward.
With the same enthusiasm that you're pushing through Middletown, correct?
Sure. Joe tells me, the little fear I have with this property, to be truthful with you, is Joe touts it as being the only one available and concerned that there really isn't anything else down there. And when I hear that, I feel a little consternation about it. So I really want to, he says it's at a mall or something. I really want to see this to make sure that it's the right long-term site. I'm glad the environmental folks are doing the study on it. And I'm going to try to get down there within the next 2 weeks to do it first.
And I think probably the big question is, you really want to know what the commitment is to a shoreline facility, right? And having it be on the same timeline as, or close to the same timeline as the Middletown. I think the thing about the Middletown and why it's its highest priority is because it's right across the street. This property across the street is available right now. You're not going to get that opportunity again.
No.
And we need that property across the street to make this work in the best way we can. The shoreline facility, that's not, we have a radius of where that could be. I think the Westford property works great, but if that doesn't work out, we have a whole radius of where it could be. That Middletown property, that property that's available today is exactly where we need that property to be. Make one campus up there, and that's why it's a highest priority.
Yeah,
because we don't want it to slip away.
You have to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime and the lifetime of the opportunity, right? Somehow this just magically opened up while we were in the middle of this process, and it's ideal. So it'd be, these things doors don't stay open forever, right? You take the opportunity when it's there or you lose it. And so this is, because it's right there contiguous to the existing property, and the existing property is too small and fully configured, these two things together make this a real nice campus. So it just absolutely happen. If I go down and see the rest of the property and I'm just as enthusiastic about it, I'm going to tack it into the DOT the same way I have the Middletown property. Joe just has to convince me that it's that type of endeavor. Building a building, you don't get second cracks at it, right? You can't pick it up and move it later. It's got to be what you really, really want for the long term. I'm interested in putting your facility down in that area. It's going to last forever, 100 years. I don't want somebody to come back 10 years from now and say, "Look, he was an idiot. What the hell did he put this down here for?" Then we got to go into the whole. I see so many properties in our business that I go and look at them. I'm like, why do we ever build here? And people say, well, it was only one available. There were 3 others available on the tax rolls, and we weren't allowed to have it because transit's not valued. It goes on and on and on and on. So you just want to make sure that it's in your best interest long term. Exactly down there.
Dennis, if you could apply the same logic then to this Westbrook piece of land that you're applying to Middletown, which is it's the one and we really don't want to lose it. The fact that Joe's and we are pointing to this one particular property is because there is a paucity of appropriate land along the shoreline, And
Yeah,
if
I
in
get that.
fact, yeah, so if in fact the setbacks and the test fit, blah, 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 all come through in the next couple of days, can you push up your coming down to see the site within the next few weeks? Can you expedite that?
Yeah, yes. If it pops through and they're satisfied with it, we can expedite that. I wouldn't expect that, but if it occurs, then yes, we can do it.
Dennis, you mentioned that there is money for the Middletown facility. Is there money for the Shoreline facility?
Not budgeted. It's not in our long-term budget yet. But it's a small enough purchase and cost of acquisition that it's not an insurmountable funding. Not something that is difficult to fund because of its cost.
And what,
We're not far enough along with that property for me to go in and say, I need this. We still have your open line item for your facility, so I can fund it out of that, if that makes any sense.
okay,
You follow me?
the land acquisition piece.
Your whole project is still on our books, so this would be basically part of that project. I haven't isolated and said we're going to pay it out of this, but
In other words, we would not have to wait for another budget cycle for you to find the money.
No, that won't have to happen. It's in our long-term plan, and your facility's in a long-term plan, and finding that amount of capital funding for a facility purchase like this is not something that's insurmountable by any stretch.
Are there any other questions on this particular item? Joan, do you want me to summarize this one, or did you hear it?
No, if you could summarize it, I'd appreciate it.
All right, wish me luck. Dennis, I'm prepared for all corrections. As to the two purchases, Middletown is moving along with lightning speed because they don't want to lose that particular piece, which is ideal and available now. The Shoreline piece, specifically Westbrook, still requires a little more evaluation of the setbacks to make sure that the piece is appropriate. As soon as that's done, Dennis is going to come down and look at that piece. His concern is only one piece in the world, but then again, there's only one piece in Middletown. So we're looking for the same energy to be put into both pieces as soon as possible. And in addition, Dennis has clarified that the facilities are in the long-term plan and that the funding will be available as soon as it's needed. How's that sound?
Excellent, thank you.
Dennis?
Good.
Okay. Let's move along then to our next item, which is about the immediate hiring of additional staff to ensure both districts run efficiently, while Joe's major role is to facilitate the integration. And Joe and Helena are to identify specific staff and funding required. Joe, I'd like you to give us some idea of what you discussed with Dennis.
So I did mention this one, and I think, so we'll start with, we took the positions that were already identified in the study as coming on in the next year. So it just kind of makes it a little bit earlier than what the study said. But it was all the positions that we've already discussed in great detail throughout the process. So it really, again, it's just making them a little earlier than what the study has suggested.
So I guess my response to that one, I think the Middletown situation, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, is they've been holding some open positions. Is that correct?
Well, which one?
I thought there were specific positions that Middletown had unfilled that they were holding to fill because of the merger. Is that not true? Or
Leslie,
Which
I'm
position?
sorry to interrupt. This is Suzanne. I can't hear Dennis.
Yeah,
right.
Dennis.
I can try. Let me try moving to another room. I mean, that's the best I can do, or I can call in by cell phone.
Somehow, when you lean forward, you're fine, but when you sit back and get comfy, you're not.
I'm
Maybe
not,
that's all.
my head is staying within 2 feet of the screen. This is moving forward. This is leaning back. I'm leaning forward the entire time for sake of looking like I'm trying to climb through the computer. Is that better?
It is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
How about everybody else?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Everybody's good. Okay. So we're committed to filling positions and moving this forward. You know, I saw this list 2 days ago. I don't know what all the positions are off that are part of that 500,000, but we're willing to start hiring and moving some of those positions forward. I'll need to look at the schedule of employees and approve the, that's one thing for a consultant to make recommendations, but Joe and I need to look at the list together and start moving some of the positions forward so that he gets some more support. I can't agree to a $500,000 target without looking at the positions and so in the budget.
Well, what is your timing? What do you feel is reasonable timing to provide additional staff as Joe will recommend?
We're willing to start planning and do some hiring immediately or in very short term. And then let me take a look at the list and see where it stands. There was a lot of back and forth on this during the study. And I think we were largely on the same page when we left off, but I'd like to revisit that again.
Yeah, I think we ended up I think what ended up in the study is what we all agreed upon. So we can go through in detail.
This is Noel. I have a question.
Yeah.
When you say you're involved in hiring the staff, that's very good news. Specifically, who is involved in that hiring, since this is a joint venture?
Well, this would be Joe's bailiwick. I mean, you know, we're not interested in micromanaging. When I say involved, I mean approving this. I'm not necessarily interested in helping him with the hires. I'd be happy to if he wanted me to, but he's very capable of doing that. I do get involved in the hiring of some of the GMs for the properties. That's just so that I can ensure that they have the proper qualifications. But I try not to micromanage them stuff. But I want to make sure
Dennis, a good answer. Thank you. I'm glad you clarified that.
Other questions? Anybody else have any other questions on this? Joe, are you comfortable with that answer? Well, Joan, to help Joan out here, we had, I'm sorry.
I heard, if you could just quickly summarize it, I'd appreciate it, Leslie.
Right, we had suggested a cap of $500,000 to ensure that we had enough staffing to run both districts efficiently. Dennis is not committing to $500,000, but he is committing to hiring additional staff as recommended by Joe, and DOT will pay for this staffing.
And a time frame?
Time frame, Joe?
Thanks.
That's a Dennis question. Yeah, Dennis, what kind of time frame are you looking at? Are we looking at?
When do we think the study will be officially completed, Joe?
When do you think
Maureen,
the study
do you know?
will what? Dennis,
I
could
know
you
Maureen's
repeat that?
there.
Sorry, I had to find my. I believe we are wrapping this up in the whole study within the next couple of months. I mean, we have the final report. We've been going back and forth on that. I mean, I think predominantly the study is definitely in the.
Yeah, we have the draft. We have the final draft of the governance piece. The thing that might be a couple months is the service side, but I think we're done with the
on the server side. We need to get that posted. We've had a, we've been challenged with how we would figure out how to get that public involvement piece.
Right.
Maybe we can start by looking at some of the positions, Joe, that we could get into now, and some of the positions that may be more appropriate to fill once this is permanently ratified by everybody. Does that make sense?
Sure.
But I think you can get started on some of it now, and then the expectation being that as this thing gets complete, finish it after that. At least you can get moving and getting some more bodies in there to give Joe some more help.
Yeah, that is how it's split out in the study. So we can go through what the plan was to bring on when. So that would be easy to do because we have split that out.
All right.
So everyone comfortable with what? Do we have a timeline?
You're asking Dennis, correct?
Yeah, because we definitely have the final information from the consultants that we need to start reviewing that.
Why don't you work out a priority list on the positions, Joe, which ones you'd like to have first, and then we'll review that and work top down. Make sense?
Yep.
All right. So I think for Joan, Joe's gonna put together a list of positions that he feels should be filled, and work on that with Dennis to try to get these positions filled as soon as possible. Is that satisfactory?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Let's move on then, I guess, to the immediate expansion of the Shoreline Shuttle Service at a cost of approximately $200,000 annually. This is our big route, Dennis. This is our meat and potatoes route. And it's really imperative that this one be protected and expanded. We did lose service a couple of years ago when the DOT was threatening a 15% cut in our budget. And so service was decreased. What can you do for that Shoreline Shuttle?
What's the current cost to operate, Joe?
Alana, do you have that right there? It's our biggest single program, but it's combined with others, so I need to get the split from her. I know she has it.
I mean, I'm trying to get how you arrived at 200,000. Not that I have any problem with it. I just don't have.
Based on the hourly cost. So what that was is the service that was cut. This was cut back when you guys did a 2% decrease in our funding.
What did you?
Several years ago. What's that?
How did you cut it? Did you cut back?
So we used to have hourly service on it, and we cut as after 12 o'clock, it goes down to, it's not even every 2 hours, because there were 3 buses, right? It's a 3-hour round trip. 3 buses ran it all day long. So now 3 buses run it until 12:30, and then it goes down to only 2 buses. So in the afternoon, you're at, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 2 hours between buses, which is pretty long on a route that is on Route 1.
What was the ridership like before COVID?
Before we made this cut, it was up around 70,000 trips a year. After this cut, it started dropping. And now it's in the 60,000s. But we've lost a lot of ridership on it. Some of that certainly due to this cut.
This
is our main shopping area. This is the main commercial area of the whole area. It's the post road.
Yeah.
It connects with City Transit New Haven.
All right. Well, I'm willing to consider that. I need to see the route, the current headways, what you're proposing, etc. But some addressing of that seems meritorious. So I haven't discussed this with anyone inside of our organization. I don't know the history of it. And let me do some legwork on my end for this. That's the best I can tell you at this point. But right now, any service expansion is going to be looked at very critically, given the budget problems. So it doesn't mean that it can't happen, especially as part of this agreement. But we need to sit down and spend more time discussing it. I assume you could put together something on it, Joe, page and a half, 2 pages.
Yeah. And I could give you the pro schedule, and it's also a recommendation. One of the recommendations of the service study is to go to hourly service on this route.
In this study?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for you guys, you kind of off the record here, if we can talk off the record with 35 people on a computer. I think this would be something that probably would be a caveat for you guys between this and leading and taking this forward. So some consideration on your main route seems reasonable. If that makes any sense. Okay? You gotta get something, right? So we'll take a look at that. If it's your main service, it goes to your main population. Folks rely on you to represent them. You're their representative. Something like that seems like it would be a win for you. So we'll take. But you know, I've got to look at it, of course, evaluate it.
Right, keeping in mind that there was a significant loss of ridership as a result of that route being cut back. So hopefully that offsets.
Like I said, for you guys, that seems like some sort of win there is in order. You know, to your highest population of people. So let's take a look at the recommendations, see what we can do on that one.
All right.
If I try to piecemeal these two, to be truthful with you, from my perspective, the implementation makes it easier for DOT to digest it. So let me take a look at this and, with Joe. Joe, next time you come over, Joe and I meet every week. So next time you come over, bring a justification for it, and you and I can sit down and go over it. Or next time we visit via computer now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have a schedule ready.
All right, so to summarize that one, Dennis is thrilled to be able to look at this and do what's possible to make our strongest route even stronger. The dollar amounts obviously will be rediscussed. Joe will have better numbers as to what it will cost to operate and what the ridership will be, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Okay, moving along.
Leslie, we're talking about restoration of hourly service on 641.
Restoration and possible expansion beyond that. We're talking about whatever Joe and Dennis can work out to make that reinstate and possibly even better.
Make it more robust.
Robust, I like that. Robust route. A robust route for the shoppers. Okay, let us move along then to other ideas that we discussed. One was awarding 5 years of the incremental operating cost in the CARES Act funding to our project. It seems to me, I'll speak for myself here, that the funds are there. CARES Act money is there. Is there any reason that what we need to complete purchase of land, construction, implementation, even rebranding if necessary, is there any reason that these millions of dollars cannot be put into a little vault that's marked Estuary Transit District Consolidation Program and put away so that nobody can touch it unless we say, we changed our minds, you can have your money back?
With only 2 days to respond to this, I'll have to do some legwork inside the DOT to be able to I'm not opposed. I'm thrilled. I would be thrilled to do that for you. But I have some other folks that I have to win over in that regard in order to make that happen. So I will.
And just to explain the thinking here, and you know, Dennis and I have discussed this a number of times, but like Leslie said, this is a way to let everyone know that the incremental cost is covered for a time period. We know in this post-COVID world there could be cuts coming, and so everyone's kind of scared that we go forward, we do this, and then we get told we're getting cut.
Yeah, you want a dedicated funding source. I understand that.
Right. That way we know the funding's there. It's awarded to us and can't be touched.
I'll try to tie that into the letter if I can. I'll deal with the. I'll try to address funding and the easy mile in the letter. Okay. I want to include all this grocery list in there because that just becomes really unwieldy in an organization our size. And a lot of this stuff I can do without having to make a federal case out of it. But the two issues I'll address in the letter are funding and the easy mile. Okay.
Do you want the property in there too?
Yeah, it's really up to
the facilities piece.
It's going to be up to the commissioner how he wants to fund it. You know, if he decides he wants to use CARES Act funding for it, that's fine. If they decide they want to use some other source and dedicate it for you, like 5307 or something, that's fine.
Yeah, that'd be fine too. They just you're that's the concern.
Because you want a dedicated funding source and want to.
We just want to know that there's some period of guarantee of funding if we go forward to do this, because we're committing to extra operating costs if we go forward with this, and so we just want to know that at least for some period we're covered.
I'm going back once we start down this path, so that they need to commit with the money lined up.
That's right. We'll kind of be stuck going forward. That's right, and so we don't want to be stuck with these extra costs.
But the bottom line is if they're spending more money, you can spend less money.
Yes.
By merging the two of you and spend money better, right?
Yes, we will.
Having you grow into,
no doubt.
Having to grow into what you should be separately would be way more expensive than having to grow into what you should be jointly. So
yeah, absolutely.
That will be the crux of the letter. Okay, so we'll try to address those two things in the letter to you. It'll be timely with the end of the study coming up, right? The end of the study's here. We're thrilled to make this happen. Here's our commitment to you for moving forward with the results of the study. And then I'll list off a couple of these most important things and get a signature for you, and we'll try to get that over to you relatively quickly. Right?
Okay, so that's all good. And are there any other questions about this? I mean, if Dennis is going to put it in a letter, and as Joe's pointing out, CARES Act or 5307, wherever it comes from, that there's something in writing, or even in the bank. Is that satisfactory?
Leslie,
No?
can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh, you can.
yes.
Oh, thank you, because I've been diddling around with these things.
Would you stop diddling? No more diddling,
Yeah,
Peter.
Okay.
Okay.
To Dennis, I want to assure you that some of the reservations you have, we would also have, because what we're envisioning is a really possible fundamental change in our whole area. And I think I hear you do not want to be a boisterous spender, and we don't want to incur costs that are unable to be covered by you or by us. So I think this box, yeah, that's it. In Hartford, I understood after about 6 months ago that everybody up in Hartford has a key to it. So my concerns are when you make commitments to us, are those reasonably, very likely, or do we have to do something else to help support your views?
No, I can help. If I need that from you, I'll let you know. I'm very comfortable telling you, you should discuss this with your legislators to move it forward. Or if I think it's stuck, I can tell you that, and you can do some legwork on your own, which I know you're very good at. At this point, you know, the study's not technically done yet. And we've been in a real period of unrest at the DOT here for the last year plus. So that's delaying things, but I could be very confident telling you that the majority of this is already agreed upon at the highest levels of the DOT. We just move really slow. And we give people a lot of concern over whether we're committed to stuff because of how long it takes us to get anything done. You know, you're looking at this thing going, these guys keep telling us they're committed to this, but we don't see anything happening. It's the most maddening thing in the world. I've only been with the DOT for 3 years, but it just takes excruciatingly long amount of time to get anything done at the DOT. And that's what you're seeing more than a lack of commitment.
Dennis, I like the fact that you were able to understand my question, which seemed to be garbled to me. But I think your attitude is very reassuring.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm personally passionate about this, and I have personal skin in the game on this. If I had to come back to you and say something was stuck, Joe's really good at reaching out to his legislators. I'm sure you'd be in a meeting with your legislators in the DOT, and you'd have a lot of leverage if that were the case. If I thought we were anywhere near that level, I would tell you that, but I really don't. I think it's just the dysfunctionality of a large state government agency to get this done in a timely fashion. And I mean that with all respect. All states are this way. Everyone I've ever dealt with. Connecticut isn't any better or worse than anybody. It just takes us forever to get stuff done. And there are folks that would criticize me for saying that, but that's my honest opinion. You know, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of chefs in the broth and a lot of people that have to weigh in on everything. And I like to move, stick and move, so it's frustrating to me. But we've significantly rattled the troops this week relative to this project. The fact it's finishing, the fact we spent $480,000 on the study to get this building. I've been sitting here answering texts relative to the Middletown building while we're talking. So I know it's moving. And I'll be very blunt with Joe and honest with Joe if I think that there's a time where you need to weigh in. I'll let him know that. He can communicate that to you.
Okay, thank you.
So I just heard from Sam too that the consultant told Sam they were wrapping up the governance piece of the study this week, and so he's going to reach out and see when they expect to deliver that final report. So it should be hopefully within a week.
Is Sam on the phone now, or is he on?
No, I texted him. He's on another call.
Again, I hope I'm not sounding critical of DOT because I'm not. It's just a very large agency, and it just takes.
Well, you can criticize DOT. We're okay with that, aren't we, guys?
I take some heat for that, though, so I want to be careful. I don't bite the hand that feeds me. But it takes time to move stuff through the chain.
Well, as long as you're willing to escalate that timeline as much as possible, I know we appreciate that.
Right.
We have another item that hasn't been brought up yet, and that is we would like to see a commitment from the DOT of at least 15% total service increase over the 5 years commencing fiscal year 22. In other words, giving everybody time to get this consolidation on its feet. At that point in time, we would definitely like to see that you're committed to increasing our services.
I would have to review that with some concrete rationale for the 15%.
I think our rationale is basically that the whole area should benefit by more buses or increase a day of the week, go 7 days instead of 6. Something that really shows the strength of this new entity, if that's the right terminology. Not just that it consolidates so that you all can save some operating costs, but that in point of fact, our entire lower valley actually sees the benefit of this.
Well, here's where we're at. We're agreed to look at the potential of making your main service more robust. We've talked about committing to at least another year of your
Extra mile and 81. Yeah.
Demonstration route. We're looking at the guarantee of funding Easy Mile for a considerable period of time longer. And I would say, Joe, why don't you take a look at those costs and see how they compare to your regular budget? You might be close to 15% right there.
Yes. Well, so the 15% comes from the study. That was in the service part, that was that middle scenario target was about 15%. So that's where the 15% number had come from.
Okay. That'll need considerable more evaluation. I think I can't blanketly agree to give you a percentage increase in service. I can look at particular services that you recommend. I can tell you if they're meritorious and consider adding services based on their merit. But simply saying we're going to increase service on a percentage basis without some sort of proposal is, we look at each service in the state and approve them based on their merit. It is just a matter of giving an extra 15% to estuary. So I'll have to we'll have to talk more about that one. Okay.
All right, but Dennis, would you agree that increased service should be, to some degree, should be part of what you're all considering in the benefit of this consolidation?
Well, I think we are. I mean, in enhancing the services, I'd like to look at Middletown too, right? There was a discussion about potentially for downtown Middletown and some of the needs Middletown has as well. So are you proposing just 15% for the current estuary area, or are you proposing 15% for the new
entity?
No, the new
the
entity, new entity, 15%.
I think you would again find that if we, I'm sure that if we took the Easy Mile total, extending your demonstration, a potential increase for your fixed route going through Old Saybrook, I assume, and something in mind for Middletown, that would probably, Joe, unless I'm wrong, I'm thinking that would take you well above 50%. No?
Well, that's not our intent.
No.
To
And
use
that's
these things to satisfy that.
The shoreline route is not part of this 15%. That's a standalone request.
You want the shoreline route and an additional commitment of 15%, and you're going to figure out where you'd like to apply it?
Yeah.
I think that's a little, I've done a lot of labor negotiations with unions, and I think that's one that, I'm going to have to, I won't say categorically no to, but I really would challenge Joe to come back with specific proposals for specific meritorious service, and we'll look at them on their merit, okay? It seems that's how we do business. That's how all transit do business.
think it's important to understand the board's point of view here, Dennis, which is that counting things that we are already doing does not qualify to us as service expansion, like Extra Mile, Route 81, restoring the cuts to 641, etc. It may, in fact, meet the statistical analysis you just provided. That maybe that makes us over 15, but that's not our intent. Our intent is we are currently providing all of those services, most of them, and the whole point of this request is that the benefit of this merger is not just to save DOT money down the road, but to improve service to our residents over time.
I got it. I totally understand your position.
Okay.
I get it. Let me be clear. This isn't just about saving the DOT money down the road. It's about taking estuary, which is a underperforming system based on its size, and making it be what it needs to be. It needs to have the staffing necessary and a good facility and all those things, and trying to do it in the most economic fashion possible. The end result is we're going to spend a lot more money on you than we do right now. We're going to hire more people. We're going to build your buildings. We're going to commit to these services. So I got your perspective. I'm listening. You got to understand mine. If Joe wants to come back with proposals for service enhancements or specific services, I'll consider them. But I can't just agree to a arbitrary increase in service without service evaluations and the merit of what you intend to do with the money. That makes sense. Everyone in the state's going through this. Everyone's struggling to make ends meet, and there's need everywhere. So you'll have to come back to me with a proposal.
All right, so let me understand something. This is off the agenda, I think. Okay, we understand it's going to cost a lot of money to make this happen. So if part of your motivation is not necessarily service increases, if I'm paraphrasing you correctly, why do you want to do this? Why do you want this consolidation?
Again, as I said the first few times, number one, a system your size is at risk, okay? Because it's so small, it's not resilient in any way. You've had periods where you've done pretty well, and you've had periods where you've struggled and performed poorly. I'm very concerned what happens if Joe leaves. I know from all the other small systems in the state that they're not financially resilient, and they're not resilient from a personnel perspective. They can't hire and keep good people. So the first element, the reason I want to do it, is to be able to attract and keep good management employees. The larger the system, the more vehicles, the more attractive you are to a competent manager. That's number one. The second one is the larger your budget is, the more fiscally resilient you are. Any problem you have when you're very small will be decimating to a very small system. So by making you more robust and a larger system, you now have enough employees to do things right. You have abilities to do things right. And that's why we want to do it. It doesn't make sense to me to build a new $25 million facility for estuary alone and staff it out with 4 or 5 more staff members, given the size of the service. You have one manager for every driver on the road. Doesn't make sense.
Okay, so why don't you consider adding to the resiliency aspect and the robust quality that increased service really is a strong element in the positive consolidation effort?
I'm interested in considering any proposals statewide for new service that's meritorious. And I'd say the same answer to anybody in the state, regardless of the setting. Joe has to put together a proposal of the services that he wants to run, and we'll look at the merit and consider where we fund them accordingly. Can I give you some special consideration for the fact that you're doing this? Yes, but I can't just commit money to an organization to operate more service without knowing what that service is. It's not reasonable. It's not reasonable request.
I think all we're asking is that the 15% service increase, which is what's recommended in this study, is something that DOT supports.
I'll have to review that recommendation and study. I'm hoping that there's some merit to that. It isn't something some consultant just stuck in there. I mean, if I were a consultant and I was suggesting a 15% increase of service to a transit system into an area, I certainly would have some idea what's intended to do with the money. So I'm hoping that the study would have some basis for considering that. And we've had a very cordial and team-oriented discussion about the things that you wanted to do. You were able to clearly tell me how the money would be spent and what you wanted to do with it. I think I'm pretty reasonable in that regard. This one, an open-ended request for additional funding without knowing how it's going to be spent, is just not in keeping with good government.
So it is in the study, and that study is not finished yet because of the challenges with the public participation. So, you know, we haven't been able to figure out a good way to reach, you know, all of the public. And we know that an online is not going to work.
Where did they come up with 15%, Joe? It sounds like something that they just pulled off the top of their head. If they don't have
No,
any...
I think it's actually like 60. There's specific proposals. It's all in there.
Okay. That's
But
what
we're waiting for is the feedback from the public on what their priorities are. Because their highest scenario is like almost a 50% increase. So we want to take everything that they came up with in the highest scenario, prioritize it based on what the public wants to say these are our top ones and these are the biggest priorities because we know we're not getting a 50% increase in service. So we want some way to narrow it down to what are the best proposals that they came up with.
You're right. Is there something...
And we just can't do that right now. And you know that much of our bus ridership is not going to be able to participate in an online survey.
Right.
So it's just we haven't come up with an adequate way to get feedback from individuals who don't have internet access or just aren't going to be able to use the internet.
You're only going to value that feedback to a certain extent, right? You're going to consider what everyone tells you. It's very important, but you, I assume, have priorities that you are going to put forth and expectations of how the public's going to respond to that, right?
Yeah, on many of them, yes.
I've never taken a service expansion out to the public and said, here's the service expansion, what do you think? If you don't like it, we won't do it. Usually we really are passionate about this. Tell us what we need to know to make it work for you, right?
Well, but this one's like a laundry list of possible expansions. So, and in Middletown, I think the particular one in Middletown that we aren't sure about is, like, we all know from a planning perspective, circle routes don't make sense. They don't work well. And it seems logical to not do the circles anymore and straighten them out. But we don't know what people's reactions to that's going to be. That's one of the big ones that we want to know, because it would certainly make a better system on paper, but will people accept it or not?
I haven't spent a lot of time on the service-related elements of this study. You want to list out the top priorities you have coming out of this?
Yeah, I could tell you what my top ones are.
Review that and talk about you know, a plan, 5-year plan going forward or something like that?
Yeah, I come up with one.
You should have a
Dependent upon what we hear from the public.
You should have a strategic plan for service, right?
Yeah, and I think with what we'll get from the consultants will give us something to work from. And even what we have already. I mean, we have already what their proposals are. The last piece we're lacking is just that public comment. That's just the only thing holding up that piece of the study. And Sam just told me that the consultant said we'll have the final report tomorrow. It's at QA now
Okay.
on the government.
right.
So.
I'd be happy to meet with you and Sam on this. Sam wants to weigh in. He knows the service area and he's a big advocate for you.
Yeah, I think Sam would be good to be on there because from the planning side, it makes sense to have him.
Why don't we just arrange a call to go over the service priorities coming out of the study? I'll get Maureen and those who worked on the study. You and Sam will go over it. I'll see if there's anything in there that seems like a no-brainer. Is that fair?
Okay. Yeah, it sounds fair to me. Joe, are there any other items that you have down, bullet items on our MOA request?
Yep, one more.
One more, okay.
Oh.
Commitment of funding for a consultant to facilitate the MOU or MOA, as Dennis would probably prefer, to facilitate the process. We are willing to go forward and get an MOA executed, but we also have determined that we need a consultant, and we need DOT to commit to the funding, release the monies, however you want to do it, so that we can move forward. We're not paying for this.
Okay. Joe, this wasn't part of the existing study?
No, the existing study just says that would be the next step. It doesn't develop the MOA. And Maureen, I don't think that's in the scope, right? I mean, I'm going from memory, but I don't remember them developing a draft MOA in the scope.
No, it wouldn't, because I mean, we wouldn't have assumed that would be the outcome. So
Right, that's right. Yeah, because we would. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah, we'll find funding for that.
How much funding will you find?
$10,000.
Who said $10,000?
I did.
Okay, and you'll put that in writing?
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure.
Any other questions on that, people?
It would be important that that $10,000 be available at the beginning of the process.
Well, yeah, we want to quickly move to writing the MOA, so.
Well, I think that's going to be the next question is, what is our time frame for getting into that part now? I don't want to speak for all the board right now, but we're very close at least to starting on that. I know the Middletown board's very close on that. I spoke with the chairman just yesterday. He's seen this list too, and I can tell you what the couple of comments they have, but I think we're getting to that next step. So what do you envision the timeline being going forward, Dennis?
Yeah, I want to move it forward ASAP. I want to move it immediately forward because timing in life is everything. The longer this thing goes, the more likely it is to get disrupted in some way. So I would suggest we discuss that between Guy and Sam also. I'm sure he has some passions about who he'd like to work with on the MOA. And I don't want to necessarily drag the board through all that. We have existing consultants under contract already, so that I could, apply to. I don't know if you're interested. I assume you might be interested in using the existing consultant. So why don't we have that discussion post haste with me, you, and Sam to figure out how that's going to go. I can't believe he doesn't have any money.
Actually, Dennis, we would like to choose the consultant. We don't want to be restricted to a list that you already have prepared. And we've done some research and we would like that leeway.
All right, well then in that case, does Sam have any funding available for this? He gets the lion's share of the planning money for your region. Could he fund it, Joe?
I don't think so. I know there's no money left in the PAL for this study. Right, Maureen? I mean, I think every dollar is spent. Because we had a budget call recently, right?
Like I
No,
said,
you're on mute. You're on mute,
Maureen's
Maureen.
on mute.
You still are.
Oh,
There you go.
I can't hear Maureen. You hear Maureen? Maureen?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you start again, please?
Yes. No, there is no funding available in the current PAL.
There is no funding available?
All the funds that were set aside for the study to date with the new request we had for additional funds from the team, we will not be getting. I don't imagine there'll be any money.
Okay, then back to Dennis. Can you commit to up to $10,000 for a consultant of our choice?
sure, let's talk to Sam about how to make this go forward.
And what if Sam says no, he doesn't have any money either? Will you commit?
If Sam doesn't have any, we'll fund it. The traditional funding source is through the MPO. My suspicion is he probably can. But if he can't, then we'll find it.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that answer. Is every-
I have a call with Sam just after this, so I can see if he does. I know that they generally have to write their plan in advance on how they're going to spend all their money. So he might already have everything programmed, even if he has some money. So that would be the only issue.
We can have a call between him and our planning department. Somebody's got to be able to come up with it.
All right. Okay, Joe, are there any other points that we want brought
That's the
out?
last one.
Okay,
That's the end.
Then I would like to say a little something here, Dennis, so that you understand where we're coming from here. I mean, this whole thing hit us kind of blindsided, and we all, our board jumped around like a bunch of screaming kids going, no way, no way, no way. We've come a long way from that position because Joe has educated us and you have educated us as to resiliency, robustness, whatever you want to call it. We understand that it's in all of our best interest to go through with this consolidation. So there is ETD, there's Middletown, and there's DOT. These are the three partners that would be involved with this consolidation, starting off with the MOA that we've just discussed. Quite honestly, speaking for the board, we need a show of good faith from DOT to ETD. You are going to show good faith to Middletown in that you're forgiving a $900,000 debt. You've agreed, Middletown's agreed to be absorbed. We are lending Joe and Helena to DOT and Middletown for, we have been lending them, and unless we had requested additional staffing, the DOT did not show any indication that they were going to provide any additional staffing. We're just going to lend our folks out of the goodness of our hearts. We're not seeing, we have not seen to date, good faith and a good partner in the DOT. I think you'll have to agree that extra mile funding still sitting on the table after it was promised again and again is not good faith in a partnership. It's imperative that you follow up with Joe, or however you follow up, with everything on our list today to give us confidence that moving forward is in fact in our best interest. Would anybody else like to jump in from ETD?
I think you said it very well.
I do too. I just, this is Joan. I just need a clarification from Dennis regarding the funding for Route 81. did I hear it correctly that you were committing funding for fiscal year 2021? If that's the case, according to my documentation that I double checked, that's actually the third year of our current grant that was approved by both the federal government and Connecticut Transportation. So am I correct in my understanding that DOT will not guarantee any additional funding beyond the current 3-year grant that we're in right now?
We're unwilling to guarantee funding for that route beyond one more year.
But 1 more year, Dennis, is it 1 more year for next year, with next fiscal year, which is the 3rd year of the grant? Or is it 1 more year beyond the 3 years of the grant for a 4th year?
For one more year from now for us to evaluate it.
That is funded already.
That's not what we understood.
That's not, yeah.
We understood you were committing to 1 more year to August of 22.
So you're saying you want it to run for 2 more years from today, regardless of who rides it?
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Because the COVID has interrupted our ability to demonstrate its effectiveness.
I'll consider that. That's the best I can tell you. Let me talk with Joe about how many people are on it now, how many people are on it prior, etc. Best thing I can tell you. Once again, I don't want to be. We take brutal criticism for running empty buses, particularly on the express route, and so it has to perform. I'd be willing to do that based on minimal performance statistics. You want to say it has to get at least X number of riders during that 2nd year, I'd be willing to do that. But it can't be, there's nobody on it and you have an agreement with us, but you got to keep running it anyway because you have an agreement with us. There's like 2 people a day riding it. While the newspapers are calling me 5 days a week, why are we running this? Why are we running this? Why are we running this? So if you can guarantee some level, modest level of service, I'd consider doing that. But I can't do it with no commitment.
I could tell you that even when the pandemic was at its worst in Connecticut, we had riders on it. Not a lot, but there were still people out there.
Okay.
It's never been empty.
Well, you need to develop that for me. If it's one person riding that bus, that's it. We need to look at that, Joe.
All right, are there other, yes,
Leslie?
no?
Dennis, this is Noel Bishop, First Selectman Westbrook. I support what all the other members of the board have said, but here's a comment I'd like to make, and it's somewhat gratuitous. In the 12 years that I've been here as a First Selectman, we've had many conversations with people from DOT. What I really appreciate you were candid, you were straightforward, you answered our questions, and that's very refreshing to me as a First Selectman to see that kind of responsiveness. And I understand precisely the predicament you're in, you understand ours, and I think this was a good faith discussion, and I'd like to thank you for your helpfulness in all of this. It means a lot to us. Thank you.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Sometimes my candor is not always appreciated on our side of the house. So feel free to share that with my boss if you run into him at any point in time. I think most folks appreciate being told the truth. You just want to understand, right? And I'll do everything I can for you. I've explained before, I started at very, very small rural transit stations in my career. I have a passion for you and what you're doing for Joe and what Joe does and helping you. It isn't all about dollars and cents. It isn't all about how many people we pick up. But I do have to we face here in Connecticut tremendous criticism if things aren't at least modestly successful. So I can spin it so far, but it's got to be at least modestly successful.
Dennis, this is Peter. I was thinking of what to say, and then my shadow there, Noel, said exactly what my feelings about how our relationship and your approach to our problems I think everybody's making a very good effort. And I think as a board member, I certainly appreciate the hard work on your side and our side.
I'm very humbled by that. I don't know what to say. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I do want to help you. It's very humbling. Thank you. I'll do everything I can to try to help you.
Dennis, I think we would all like to feel that you are at the top of our DOT food chain, that we don't have to climb higher to get what we want, that we don't have to go to our legislators to get what we want. And we're relying on you and your candor today to follow through on what you are promising to try to do. We're relying on that.
Yep. I understand.
In spite of what the screen is showing, is there anyone else that has any comment regarding this portion of the agenda? Any other discussion about the bus study or the MOA? All right then, hearing no further discussion on this matter, I believe we can go into executive session if we wish for the purpose of contract negotiation with the DOT.
That was on here in case we needed it. I don't know if you guys could determine if you need it.
Yeah, I don't know whether we do. No.
I don't know. Joe, are we there?
I would like to have a brief executive session.
For the purpose of, you must identify the purpose, Susan. Is it you want to go in?
Contract negotiations with DOT.
Leslie?
All right. Yes.
Leslie, this is Noel. I want to apologize to you. There is an important conference call, or Zoom call rather, with the governor in about 5 minutes with the Middlesex Chamber. So if I sign off in 5 minutes, not because I'm being rude, but I certainly want to represent Westbrook when we have that call with the governor.
All right. In that case, there has been a request to go into executive session. Is there a motion?
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're going into executive session at 11:46, and I would like to invite in the board, Joe and Suzanne. Joe, if you can do that, that would be greatly appreciated. Everyone else, thank you very much. Dennis, if you're
Do
leaving.
you want to say thank you to our guests? And
I do. Thank you, Dennis, and thank you any other members of the public that have joined us today. Thank you very much, and Joe will be in touch.
And just a minute before we start, because why you saw my screen changing is I'm trying to, my controls have disappeared for the recording, and I cannot get them back.
Yeah, you want to unrecord?
Yeah.
You can't
And-
record executive session anyway.
Right.
I know, but it won't let me stop.
Stop recording.
Here, maybe
It's not letting me stop the recording. I can't find the little tool. It has disappeared from my. I see all of us,
I'll check.
but my.
Take all of us away. The record button will come back up.
I can't.
Hit your
Can I?
screen again.
Yeah. No. Usually, if I go to the top of the screen, I can't even end my screen share. Something's stuck with my.
Your Zoom is stuck.
Yeah. So I might have to get off and get back on to stop it. But it won't even let me do that.
What do you want me to do? Clock in again or?
Joe,
I
tell
might
us
just
that,
have to be me.
Joe, tell us you've been overwhelmed by the logic and brilliance of the board today, and that may cut you right out.
Let me try to leave this meeting and come back in, and maybe it will reset my, or maybe if I just restart.
That may do it.
So I might drop for a second, but it looks like Zoom is just frozen on me.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
So if I leave, I'll be back.
Okay.
Leslie, it's Virginia. I have to go, but I must say that this has been an excellent meeting, and I learned a lot, and I was glad that it was done. And even your end conversation there was, very important and brought a lot to my attention. So I trust we'll go ahead further. And, thank you, Dennis. I think you did an excellent job. And, you seem like certainly committed to the transit district. And, we appreciate that. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Have a good